Hey, welcome to our Dead Talk, the place where we discuss all shows and comics within the Walking Dead universe. I'm Colleen.
And I'm Jeremy. Today's podcast will be discussing The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1, titled Days Gone By. This is the premiere episode of The Walking Dead.
Here's the plot for today's episode. After waking up from a coma in an abandoned Atlanta hospital, Officer Rick Grimes embarks in a survivalist adventure in a post-zombie apocalypse. Morgan and Dwayne, whom he meets along the way, help teach Rick the new rules for survival.
Its original air date was October 31st, 2010. Before we start, we want to give a big spoiler warning. We will be talking about the entire episode during this podcast and may even reference something from another point in the show's entire run. So there may be spoilers sprinkled in throughout our episode. You have been warned.
Oh my god! I have to see how
I told her that she could start, but I jumped the gun.
Yeah, you did. You might hear wind periodically or cars go by the way. But I have been waiting for this point since we talked about starting a podcast about The Walking Dead.
We really should have started here. Honestly, I mean,
Probably.
We should have started with the beginning.
Yeah.
But we were trying to keep up with The Walking Dead as it was coming out.
For the final season.
But, man, oh man, this is really what I think everybody got hyped up about. This is where it all began. This is where I feel it was the best.
Oh, absolutely. This is... The Walking Dead Season 1 especially is like my comfort show and my comfort season. I can watch this over and over again. Like the last episode will air and I can start from the beginning, or even just the first 2 episodes. I can finish it and just restart watching it.
It's that good.
Yeah. Absolute favorite.
And I was skeptical, for sure. I know I've told you a couple of times where I'm like, I don't know. Like before The Walking Dead came out, before the show came out, I didn't know anything about the comic books or anything like that. And Call here was telling me, oh, they're going to be coming out with a show about zombies.
And this is back in 2010.
Back in 2010, and I'm like, that sounds stupid. I don't think it's going to be any good. It's going to be cheesy. And then the very first couple of scenes of this show,
oh my god,
hooked me.
Yes.
Good. It hooked me hard.
I remember we were talking about it, like Jeremy was just saying, like I had told him about it and he was kind of I was excited because I always love zombie movies and stuff, so this was like, this just sounds amazing because it's like they're gonna put the time into it and it's gonna be almost, obviously most zombie movies are like an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and most of these episodes are about 45 minutes to an hour depending on how many commercials there are and everything. But I feel like I was so excited because I'm like, it's almost a mini movie about zombies every week, and I was really hoping it was going to be great. We didn't really know too many people in the cast when it first came out, aside from Norman Reedus because he was in Boondock Saints. So we knew about him, of course, and then Andrew Lincoln. At the time, I don't think we knew of him though, because we didn't watch Love Actually at that point.
I guess that's true,
because that was only a couple years later. That one of our holiday traditions is to watch Love Actually together. And then like the older I get, the more I realize how kind of like almost, not that the movie's crappy, but there's a lot of loophole, or there's like a lot of flaws in the movie, and just a lot of well, that's rude kind of thing. Like,
it's a little bit of a mess. The little bit, but I still love it.
Me too. It's one of our traditions for the holiday season. But back to Walking Dead and not Love Actually, because this is not a Love Actually podcast.
No, not yet.
I was just gonna say, at least not yet. But this has been what I have been waiting for. The first season, my absolute freaking favorite. So, like we've said in our trailer, and I think we're going to reshoot our trailer anyway, but we've said it before, where we're going to go through the whole Walking Dead. I don't know where that accent just came from. We're going to redo the whole Walking Dead, like a rewatch for us. And
were you slipping into Love Actually?
Yeah. But we're going to start from Season 1, Episode 1, like we're doing, because we do have quite a few episodes already for, I think it's Season 11, Season 10 or 11, whatever the final season of The Walking Dead is.
Yeah.
I call myself a fan. But it's Season 10 or 11, and then we kind of skipped, if you were kind of following us along, or if you just discovered us and you're looking back at our history already, we're going to be better with this time around.
I hope so.
Yeah, we will.
We're working on it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna shoot for.
I'm working on it.
It's hard because we both work, so it's by the time we're unwinding for the night, we don't really feel like having to record or anything. But either way, I'm rambling now. I'm excited.
I'm excited too to rewatch this.
Yes.
Again, the first couple of scenes in this show hook you. Yes. The characters, you instantly feel connected to them, and it was just a great ride to get into.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to doing it again.
And it's interesting to see how they changed the walkers from the first couple episodes, or even just the first season, to later on, because here it's almost like they're able to climb gates and fences. They're using rocks. Yeah. There's so many things that they're doing that they don't continue that storyline, and we'll meet one of my favorite walkers.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the first episodes towards the end when Rick gets to the city. I think it's
nope. It's the second one, second episode.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure it's in Guts.
Because I think the end of this episode is where he gets in the.
Do we see him in the first one?
I'm pretty sure, because this is the. Isn't
I don't
this
think
the?
So.
No.
Pretty sure he's only in Guts, because I remember Rick walking by with the guts all over him, and then that walker sees them.
No, I think that's gonna be in the first episode, because that's when Rick gets stuck in the tank.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe
we'll find out. We'll see.
Yeah, we will find out.
We will find out. Okay. We'll see what we're both remembering or misremembering. So we'll see. Because as I'm sure it happens to you guys too, if this is either your first time watching or you've watched it before.
If you're listening along, well, they don't even know which walker we're talking about right now.
Yeah, they don't. That's true. They don't know which walker we're talking about. But what I think I was trying to say was that sometimes the episodes do kind of blur together. Sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time. But we'll see.
But kind of in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a continuous story, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. We did do a rewatch a couple years ago. There was no podcast involved, but we did do a rewatch a couple years ago. And it's interesting because when you do rewatch it and you watch it pretty consistently, whether it be a couple episodes a week or you just watch like an episode a week, however it goes, the story goes a lot faster than it does when we're watching it in real time.
Yeah, when we're watching it week by week, weekend by weekend as they're coming out.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, this is taking so much longer. You don't realize how quickly the storyline moves.
Yeah, and the
when
characters
you binge
lives.
them.
Yeah.
It's just like bam, bam, bam. Like, oh my god, they're already at the barn or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the prison and all that.
CDC.
So, yeah, it goes fast. So, all right, we are going to get into it, and then we'll pause the show periodically, talk about a couple bits of the scene, and I'm going to try to talk as slowly as I can, because I get really amped up, and then I get really fast with talking, so I'm sorry if I talk too quickly for anyone. I will work on controlling my speed a little bit better, so. All right, see you in a little bit. The opening scene just happened.
Days gone by.
Yep. Rick drove in.
Yeah.
And then he had his gas can out, was looking at the gas station, and they said no gas.
Obviously, it looks like crap already hit the fan.
Yes.
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
There's a flipped truck. Another truck is half burned. Looks like an old encampment site. People are dead in their car. Mm-hmm. Nobody's there. No gas sign.
Yep. A lot of things just thrown about, like either people left in a hurry or things just got abandoned and then ripped through.
Rick's uniform is still nice and clean.
Yep.
I was noticing that. And
yeah, it still looked nice and pressed and everything too.
What a freaking intro for the show. Like, obviously if you've seen trailers, you know what the show is going to be about. So you kind of have some idea of what to expect. But that isolation.
Yes.
I love the sense of isolation that you feel right in the beginning of the show. You don't know who this character is. We know who he is now because we've been watching the show for so long. But the first time we watched it, we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It's not a lot that happens in the first couple minutes of the opening. Like, it's only about 4 minutes long, but there's so much that still happens at the same time. Like, even the little girl being introduced and then him trying to talk to her. And that's where we were saying, too, where they have the walkers a little bit different. Whereas she was, like, shuffling along, and then she stops and she bends down and picks up her little bunny rabbit stuffed animal. They don't do that now. Although
towards the end they started doing it again.
Right, I was gonna say, although they did start changing things a little bit towards the end of the seasons, so I don't know if they were kind of doing a callback or if they were just wanting to change them.
I forget what they said. They kind of like, well, we didn't really have the rules figured out in the beginning of the show, so we kind of had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then they completely stopped doing that, and they stopped using tools, and they stopped recognizing things, I guess.
Yeah, because it seemed like in the first season, you'll see a couple of the walkers that they almost still have part of their own human memory in there because they go back to, like, the homes that they lived in or the homes that they were in.
the bunny slippers definitely would not have stayed on.
No,
Like,
definitely not.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I almost kick my slippers off most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not a zombie.
Yeah. At least in the mornings you are a little bit, but
Sometimes.
Aren't we all? No, one of the things I just noticed this time around, and I don't know if it's because we do have a larger television now, and before I was watching it maybe on a smaller TV or just one of those little portable DVD players, or I just throw it on my phone with like a streaming service. But I just noticed that little girl had braces.
Oh, yeah.
I never noticed that before. All these
yeah.
years that I've been watching this, I just now noticed that she has little braces. So
that was a kind of a cool little touch that they had, especially because they had half her face blasted off.
Yeah. And Jeremy and I were just saying, too, that it's amazing that the people that were trying to get this show going, I feel like they were pretty ballsy because it is a pretty graphic show. There's a lot of dead people around. There's like flies flying around, a lot of decay, and just really morbid things. And then you have a child that's obviously a zombie, so they're dead. And then they have the headshot, and they show it, and they have her body thrown back from said headshot. So that's pretty ballsy to do in the first less than 5 minutes of a brand new show.
Yeah. There wasn't necessarily, I think you said before, not necessarily a lot happened in this first couple of minutes, but it was heavy.
Yes. And you could tell Rick was like, oh.
Yeah, he was shocked.
Yeah.
He was shocked, and yeah, he obviously felt bad about it.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, crap, it's a little kid, and you don't want to have to take that one out. And it's just sad anyway, because then, obviously, they're a zombie, so they went through some stuff, and they were probably terrified, so, But either way, it's heavy. Yeah. All right, we're going to watch the intro, and then we will be back.
We just watched the intro. First off, before we get into the whole action that happens in the first scene, well, I guess the second scene of the show.
Yeah.
The intro. How good is that intro? Like, I feel like whoever created the song for the intro to The Walking Dead kind of took some notes from Jaws a little bit. A little bit. Only because it's like orchestral.
Okay.
And it's pretty simplistic. But it has that ominous sound to it that just like
hooks you. Yeah.
I'm going to use the word hook a lot.
Yeah. Apparently I will too. It's kind of like Halloween. It's like such a classic song.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite songs.
And again, they're pretty simple. Like they're not very intricate songs, but they are they get stuck in your head. They hook you.
They hook you.
They hook you.
But the whole intro is just so beautiful in itself. Just the imagery that they have, and obviously the sound, like we just said. I do hate later in the season when they try to change it a little bit. They don't change the song, but they change the visuals.
Animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really appreciate the animation as much.
I don't cool. Well, I don't cool. I was gonna say I appreciate the attempt at changing things up and I don't know, spicing it up a little bit, making it new. But sometimes it's like, don't mess with certain things. Like, that is just a classic thing for me. Yeah. I don't know if it's because especially the first couple seasons I'm so nostalgic about.
Yeah. I think if they stuck with just keeping it with imagery and not animation.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah, if they changed it to fit more of like what would be happening with those
new
characters in that particular season.
Yeah.
Kind of like they did with Fear the Walking Dead. Fear the Walking Dead, they kept those animation type of things, like the silhouettes. But they had
those
it
cool.
kind
of
yeah, I do too. That they keep that kind of pertaining to even that particular episode. Like if it's about John Dory, they're gonna have like the shapes of John Dory or June.
Dory.
I love him, and that's another show we'll get into at some point in time too. We'll go over Fear the Walking Dead. We're gonna rewatch that at some point, but that might be quite a while from now because we're just gonna kind of focus on the Walking Dead for right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the intro for the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Top notch.
I love the chemistry between John Bernthal and
Andrew Lincoln.
Andrew Lincoln.
Yeah.
Like it feels like a real conversation. It feels like they're friends.
Yeah. How they would be already. Just BSing in the car when they're waiting for the next task for their job.
They have chemistry.
Now, well, I was telling Jeremy that when Shane was talking about the joke about the electricity, and I don't know if that was his girlfriend or whatever, saying about she leaves on all the lights in the house and blah blah blah, and it's like every pair of boobs in the world pretty much does that, and I'm like, I take offense. I do not do that.
No, I typically I'm usually the one leaving the lights on. I'll forget about it, or I'm just like, whatever. Yeah,
one of my biggest pet peeves are when people leave their lights on when it does when it's not needed. It's like there's too many lights being left on. I do like I like fairy lights. I like having like different pretty decorative lights and stuff. But I feel like if you're going to be gone, why do you have all those lights on?
Yeah.
So Shane, I do not agree with that, sir. But obviously you can see, okay, so still talking about that conversation they were having in the car, but aside from that lighting joke, Rick and Lori, which we obviously have not met Lori, but we assume it's his wife because he has a ring on his finger, and the way it's worded.
Their kid.
Yeah, exactly. About like talking about like saying things.
He doesn't mention Carl at this point.
No, he doesn't say who it is, like that his son's name is Carl, but Rick mentions that that's the difference between me and Lori. Like I wouldn't say these things in front of our son or our kid kind of thing, but she did. So it's obvious that there's something going on between them in their marriage. I don't know if we ever really get to the bottom of what it is.
Yeah, what he said that she said, I wonder if you even care about us at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I think Shane said something about, come on, like let it out, talk, vent.
What's the difference between men and women? And then, Shane went through his whole situation with the flipping the light switch. And Rick finally opens up, and it's a pretty heavy story.
Yeah.
Like he's having issues with his marriage. You can tell that they're not as close. She seems like she's always mad at him.
Yeah, and that she's saying that he's not expressing his feelings, but we really don't know that at this point in time.
Yeah.
And then they get a call. But first off, those burgers look so freaking good.
Oh, man.
And then they get a call, and they just throw it all in the garbage.
Yep.
You turds. I could never. But then they go to the call, and it's such a crazy high and like just a high speed chase that they're having.
No, like seriously, the first couple of like minutes of this show are so good. Like just the acting, the chemistry between the two main characters right now, and then that crash.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That was an epic crash scene.
It was, and then how the cars flipped a couple times and everything. Mm-hmm. I know years ago, when I was younger and I wasn't as much of an adult and I didn't have as many responsibilities, I knew so much about The Walking Dead. So I know I knew more about that scene, like just the filming and how they went about getting it and the flips and everything. But now I can't remember, so I'd have to look up the info again. But it's really cool, all the stuff that they put into the show and that kind of scene. And the first guy that comes out of the car, he always kind of grossed me out. He kind of reminds me of like a porno gross guy or something like that. A little
Ron Jeremy-esque?
Yeah, maybe.
I gotcha.
When we were watching this...
Shoot that guy.
Yeah, when we were watching the clip, I'm like, yeah, he reminds me of, what's that guy? And then thinking Jeremy. I'm like, Jeremy. And then I'm like, oh yeah, Ron Jeremy. So, gross. But one of the things I always thought of, especially once we got further into the show, even when it first premiered and then we got further into it and like what it's about and stuff, I was kind of thinking the guys that got shot, it's kind of like you're lucky because they don't even know what is coming. Like the world is turning to hell.
And even if they did survive, they would have been the jerks to be preying on the weak.
Probably.
Likely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They would have been stealing from people, and it would have been like their world until they got bamboozled, and then the walkers came after them. Which
bamboozled again.
It would have been a very satisfying kill to watch.
Oh yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
And then we see Rick gets struck, but thankfully it was just in his vest, and so he gets on. He gets on
cool.
the ground.
He's good.
Yeah, he's good until he turns around, and they didn't check. I am surprised. They seem to be so good at that. Rick and Shane, they seem to be. They have a lot of years experience. That's what it seems like anyway. And I don't even remember. I'd have to look back to see if on the call that the dispatcher was giving them, if they said like 3 perps or something like that, because obviously they killed 2 of them. So they should have been like, oh, there's a 3rd one, but maybe they just got frazzled because Rick got shot. But thankfully it was just in the vest. And it's interesting that he was like, never tell Lori about that. And he turns his back and then boom, like right in a spot where it's really not good. It seemed like it was very close to his heart too.
Yeah,
it was on his left.
Looked like his left shoulder.
Yeah.
Like just under his like scapula.
Yeah. Very good job.
Below his cerebellum.
So his brain.
It's true. I'm not wrong.
You are not wrong. Not to say I love every single scene from the first season, but I love this scene.
This whole first episode has so many iconic scenes.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
Like most of the it laid the foundation for The Walking Dead, like the rest of The Walking Dead.
Yes.
Whenever I think about The Walking Dead, usually one of these scenes pops up in my mind.
Me too. I may have already mentioned it earlier in our recording here, but there's a lot of wind happening right now, and our windows are pretty old and drafty, so you're going to hear them rattling every now and then. So if you're wondering what that sound is in the background, it's just the wind and some cars. So this is the scene where Shane visits Rick at the hospital.
Rick's still in a coma. We don't know how long he's been in a coma at that point, but it does sound like Shane's been visiting him for a while now.
Yeah, at least a couple times he mentions, he's like, I know I've been here a couple times, or he said something along the lines of that.
He said something to the effect of, I know I say the same thing every time I come in here.
Yes, that's what it was. I really like I guess it's kind of subtle, but not super subtle, where Shane brings the fresh flowers, and then they pan to the next scene. Well, not pan, but they have the next scene of Rick waking up, and he makes a little joke back to Shane, like it just happened, and like Shane's just in the room, and then Rick's like, where are you, kind of thing, are you in the bathroom? And then he looks over, and the same flowers that were fresh and new are dried up
and withered.
Yep, and they're falling down, and he grabs one, and it's all dried, and it's cracking in his hand and stuff. So it's kind of it is very much signifying, wow, quite a bit of time has passed between Shane was there and right now when Rick wakes up.
I was trying to think of like, was that the last time Shane was there, or did he come by maybe later? I don't know.
He did come by later.
Well, obviously, we know that we already have the disclaimer that we're going to give spoilers. So we do know that Shane does wind up coming back and blocking the door to protect Rick, ultimate bro.
Yeah.
I love Shane in the first season. He does have his moments.
He would be amazing to see going up against Negan. Especially Negan, because Negan was such a dominant powerhouse that to see how Negan and Shane would butt heads, because Rick is very much a leader too, and Negan is very much a leader, but so is Shane. Yeah. But Shane is very much, I don't want to say cutthroat, but kind of cutthroat. Like he would definitely have Rick's back, of course, because they are brothers through and through. Well, there's a couple things that happen that, I mean, what would someone that really has your back like that, why would they do some of those actions? But, we'll talk about that as they happen.
I think Shane could have been a leader, but he also needed that temperament. He needed, somebody like Rick with more of a level head.
Yeah.
To keep him on an even keel.
Yeah, Shane was a little too hot-headed with a lot of stuff. He was a great character, and I really wish they didn't kill him off so soon, whether that was just how it happened in the comic books, because that's another thing that Jeremy and I want to read through, are the comic books, and see how they're different from the TV show. I don't know when they killed Shane off.
We'll find out.
I feel like I really would have loved to have seen how far Shane could have gone in this world, because not to say this world was like made for Shane, because it wasn't, of course, but I think he would have done pretty well, but maybe he would have lost too much of his good side. Yeah. Because he was kind of turned into the dark side, and that was really only within the first couple weeks or months of the apocalypse. Yeah. But maybe he went so dark because of everything that happened with Lori, and then Rick coming back into the picture. So there was a lot of jealousy, I think Shane got a little used to taking care of certain things. But I mean, we'll talk about that in a couple. Yeah. I don't want to get onto that podcast. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. But. So Rick wakes up. Can you imagine this frickin' nightmare?
Waking up, the IV bag is bone dry.
Yep.
He had to have a catheter in, I would assume.
Oh, that's true too, maybe.
I was thinking, I know it's a TV show.
Yeah.
But I do think of his catheter bag would have been busting. That whole room would have stunk like pee and poo.
You're right.
And Rick definitely would have needed a change of outfit.
Yeah.
And a shower. He would have had bed sores. But I looked it up, and Robert Kirkman said that he was probably in a coma for about 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay. Remember years ago, before the show really ended and before Rick left the show, what was that, season 7 or 8, something like that? They were always saying that, can you imagine if this is how it's going to end, where all this was in Rick's head and he was in a coma this entire time?
That would have been awful.
I know.
That would have been a mess.
I feel like it would have let a lot of fans down.
Yeah. I think another, I don't know if we should get into it, but another possibility that I heard of, that they were going to end the show being Old Man Carl.
I've heard that too.
Telling the whole story of everything that happened with his dad. That would have
been crazy.
I thought that was all right.
Yeah.
I would have been okay with that, but they went a different way.
That's another thing. Spoiler alert. I hate that they killed off Carl, at least in the TV show. Again, we have to read the comics, which we will do.
Yep.
But going back to this portion of season 1, episode 1, Rick wakes up,
Falls out of bed.
Yep, falls out of bed and goes into the bathroom, gets some water from the sink. I would be chugging the crap out of that.
Damn, yeah, I would have been so thirsty.
And then opening the door, the patient door, into the hallway, and you could see where the gurney was in front of the door, which is, we find out later, that's the one that Shane put.
That was cool. When we find that out, we're just like, oh, some random gurney is in front of the door. That was convenient. Then we find out Shane did that.
One of my favorite bodies to see is coming up here where Rick is like walking around and he's, what was that?
Better be mine.
Yes. Well, walker body, I guess you could say. One of my favorite walker bodies that's coming up is that woman that I believe might be some sort of medical staff. I don't believe it's a patient. I think it's a medical person that they're laying there. Just, it looks so creepy. And that's one of the first bodies that Rick sees.
Yeah. It was like perfectly lit.
Yep.
And in the middle of the hallway, stripped of most of her meat except for her face.
Her hair just, it looked so creepy. Like, oh my gosh. And then I think there was even the flickering of the lights, and you can hear that classic buzz from those types of lights.
Yep. Incandescent bulbs.
I love the ambiance of this freaking show, man.
Yeah.
So good.
And then watching Rick walk through the hallway.
Oh, so freaking classic. And then, so there was that don't open dead inside door, and then he goes to that, and like the fingers are coming out and everything, and it's just, he's like horrified, because I mean at this point he's like, what is happening?
Yeah, he has no idea that there's walkers, and he sees that sign on the door, and then it would look like living people, but he knows. Yeah. He obviously knows that something's not right.
Yeah, and then you hear the groans and the breathing weird and stuff through the wheezing. And then you see the hands coming out, and the hands don't look like the healthiest hands, and like the nails are brittle and broken and everything. But cool little side note, Jeremy and I went to New York City about 2 years ago.
Was it the Museum of the Moving Image?
Yeah, I think it's over in like Queens area.
Awesome place. It was great to check it out. But they had a Walking Dead exhibit, and we went through. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but I touched the don't open dead inside doors. Yes. I touched the actual prop.
The genuine prop.
Ooh!
It was a really cool exhibit. I think we may have talked about it in another podcast that we have done, but it was a really cool exhibit for us to check out because we love The Walking Dead so much. They had a lot of original props there. They had Daryl's motorcycle down on the first floor when we first walk in, and then
I didn't touch that.
I may have. I don't remember. Ooh. I may have.
I know they have a lot of replica. Well, not replica, but they have the actual heads.
Yeah.
Like the molds.
Like Herschel's head.
And
like the animation part of it, like because if they use different like different tools that like FX teams would use where they put like tubing in it and then they would squeeze this little thing that it would make it move or whatever. Yeah. They had those. It was a really cool. Yeah, animatronic is the word. They had some of the Glenn doubles and stuff.
Alpha.
Yeah.
The Alpha head. Yo. Seriously though, like the Alpha head was so well detailed. It was scary.
Yeah, we do have some photos and footage from that trip, and maybe one of these days I'll compile that together. Maybe I'll put it on our Dead Talk YouTube channel, so if anyone's interested in looking at that. So Rick keeps going. He goes to a nurse's station. He finds matches. That's like the worst. Like you can't even find a flashlight.
Yeah,
that sucks. It is cool that
it's hard to find matches
anymore. Yeah, it is. It's cool though because you could see the clock in his patient room, and then you can kind of see the clock at the nurse's station. The time stops at the same time. So they probably lost power, and so all the clocks are probably hardwired, so they all stopped at the same time. So that was a pretty cool little tidbit that they had. And even when Rick woke up, he was sweating a little bit, so there was probably no air conditioning running too.
Man, I wonder if the dehydration is what woke him up.
It's possible, the dehydration and him probably sweating a little bit.
Yeah. So, he's got the matches. He's lighting his way down a stairwell.
Whew. Pitch black.
Not making a lot of noise, but knowing what we know now about walkers, we're like, be quiet.
I know. Even when he came out of the patient room, I'm like, oh my god, please be quiet with that gurney. But he has no idea at that point in time. And then when he gets into the stairwell and he's lighting the matches, he kind of puts his hand near his face. And to me, I still think like Is it just because he's still kind of getting acclimated to the bright light from the matches? Or is it because of the decay smell that's probably in there?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, the next scene, we know that he's walking down and he opens the door to, at least 100 bodies in body bags.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was insane. And it's just like such a stark contrast to what I'm sure it was like when he was going into, the hospital.
He must be thinking, like, what nightmare am I in right now?
Yeah.
And I mean, we know in a couple scenes, we're going to see him go to his house, and then he starts having a freak out, and he's slapping his head and, like, on the ground. And he's like, what is happening?
Yeah. But, so we watched him walk through all these dead bodies, obviously freaking out, and he climbs up a hill, and there's already an army outpost.
Yeah.
With helicopters, there's tents. It looks like they were trying to support, like, have some kind of relief there. And
a lot of damage to buildings, including the hospital.
Yeah, the hospital looked rough.
And if Robert Kirkman mentioned he was in his coma Rick was in his
4
coma
to 5
for about
weeks.
Yeah. A lot can happen in that time, especially when the world's going to crap. So things were moving fast. And at this point, he hasn't seen a living soul at all.
Nope. And he's only seen those fingers coming out of that door.
Yeah, that's true. He did see that. And then...
He did see that.
And then when he's walking, and then he finds what's called Bicycle Girl.
Man, that's another super classic scene. That was just, like, so graphic and haunting.
Yeah.
She looked sad. Like, it was, like, depressing to see that.
Yeah, and it would be so messed up to see just a dead body there anyway. Mm-hmm. But then her lower part is gone, aside from just her bones.
Just her upper torso.
Yeah. And then she moves, and she's, like, crawling towards you, and it's like, oh, my God. Like, this can't be real. Crazy. This part does make me chuckle, though, because at this point, Rick is still, he's wearing his hospital gown, and he gets on the bicycle, and I think he's still, like, super confused, and maybe his muscles aren't the strongest at the moment because he was just bedridden for a little while, and he's getting on the bicycle, so he's still kind of getting his footing, and so he looks a little dorky, and then he has his hospital gown blowing behind him, and it's just, he's so awkward on the bike right now.
Yeah, I don't know if the bike is too small. Go watch the scene.
Yes, he looks like the weirdest little, like, most awkward superhero right now, and it makes me chuckle every time. Like, he looks so cute.
Oh yeah.
The scene where Rick goes into his house, he finally makes it home, and he's, like, yelling for Lori and Carl, and he's looking around, and you can tell things have been kind of looked through, but not as far into it as we're used to with the apocalypse really happening now.
Yeah.
But then that's when he has his little meltdown. He's like, is this real? Wake up, wake up.
I would probably have the same reaction.
Yeah, Andrew Lincoln did such a phenomenal job at that part. Like, even just thinking about it now and watching it brought tears to my eye. It's so eyes. Just one of them.
I mean, it was okay.
He could have done a little better to make both my eyes.
If both my eyes watered, chef's kiss. But you just got one tear, one eye.
Yeah. No, but really, he did such a phenomenal job at that scene.
He did.
Even just thinking about it makes me teary-eyed. I included both eyes at that time. And then he goes out front, and he sits on the front step. And this walker, that he's kind of blurry, he's in the background a little bit, and he's, like, slowly walking down the street, and then he starts, like, limping over towards Rick. And Rick, he's so cute and pathetic. I just want to hug him.
Well, first off, I just want to say, how desperate would you be to see your family at that point?
Yes.
He just woke up in the middle of a coma. You don't know what's going on. He's tired. I'm sure he's hungry. All these dead bodies. Runs home. They're missing. What a stinking nightmare. Holy cow. Like, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I would want nothing more but to see somebody I knew.
Yeah.
I would bawl my eyes out.
Same. And seeing that walker down the street there, and then Rick kind of holds his hand up and, like, waves to him, but then obviously the walker doesn't wave back. That walker, and I wonder if it is kind of like a callback, inspired by the
Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, I said it before while we were watching it. Now I'm getting stuck on my words, but
I was waiting for you to get it.
Yeah, but it reminds me of Night of the Living Dead pretty hard, especially with, like, the suit that he's wearing and stuff. So
it might have been.
Maybe. More than likely.
Most zombie films have some kind of homage to Night of the Living Dead.
For sure. And I love the way they shot this scene, too, because you're preoccupied by that walker that's in the street, and you're like, oh, God. And then they have that scene of Dwayne coming in, which we're about to be introduced to Dwayne and Morgan.
Yeah.
And they had Dwayne coming in the background, and it's like,
we didn't know.
My
We're like,
God.
oh crap, he's gonna get bit.
Yeah.
But nope, it was Dwayne.
Yeah, it was Dwayne. And then
Not The Rock.
But then he smacks him in the head with the shovel. Whew.
Yeah.
That stinks.
Yeah, meeting Morgan for the first time. We love Morgan. Lenny James.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I'm not super familiar with a lot of his work, but I do love the movie Snatch. If you've never seen the movie Snatch, Lenny James is in there. He has a great part. That's like my main knowledge of Lenny James stuff.
Yeah, that's, I really only know him from The Walking Dead, but I love him in The Walking Dead. And then, of course, Fear, when he kind of got transferred to Fear.
Yeah.
But can you imagine Rick is still confused, everything we've already said and whatnot, and then he looks over and he sees Morgan take a gun straight to Rick's mind, another human being, to their head and just blow their brains out?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess he is a little desensitized to it because he is a police officer, so I'm sure he's seen some gruesome things.
Yeah.
But it's still a lot to see right there when you're going through this hell that has been his day.
Yeah.
So, and now Rick he just kind of fell unconscious again.
Yeah.
And Morgan's asking what that wound is, so we're about to find out.
Mm-hmm. Here we finally get to meet Morgan and Dwayne, and they got they got Rick tied up to the bed, and he's still asking Rick what his wound is.
Yep, which is why he
cleaned it up.
Why he's chained up or roped up, whatever.
He cleaned it up. He said it was rank, which after 4 or 5 weeks of not getting the bandage changed, dude, I'm afraid. I'm surprised he doesn't have gangrene. Yeah,
honestly, it could have been a lot worse than it was, because with this it's just a TV show, but in actuality it would probably be antibiotics. A lot of them.
Yeah, it's nice. I like how they are already kind of incorporating the rules, like don't get scratched, don't get bit, and how Morgan's already freaking out about making sure he's keeping his son protected.
Oh yeah, telling Rick don't open the curtain or the makeshift curtains because the light's going to draw them in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the noise. He's telling about the noise. But Morgan said that he shouldn't have fired that shot earlier in the day because it probably drew a lot of the walkers into town.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're setting the scene for what we as the viewer are going to be like, oh God, don't do that. No, don't do that.
These are the rules. These are the rules. You don't shoot if you don't have to because it's going to draw more. You don't get bit. You don't get scratched. You get a fever. It burns you out, and then it brings you back. That was cool.
Yeah, this is a good portion, and then they go out from the bedroom, and they're having their dinner, and they're talking together, and that's when Dwayne and Morgan find out that Rick basically just woke up today, and this is like he was just dropped in here. Yeah. Dropped in this war zone, essentially.
It sounds crazy. He's like, I understand everything sounds crazy right now, but this is how it is.
And this is when still, of course, we're still in the first episode, so like we've already touched on a couple times, this is when they're still grabbing items and they're acting like the walker still has that bit of humanness to them where they have the memories. So we're finding out that this is Dwayne's mother that's coming up on the porch, and she starts twisting the doorknob. And I can't even imagine that fear of being Rick and looking through, and then that walker coming up and like trying to like look through the peephole too. Oof. A little bit, because I know I've gone to our back door and we have a peephole, and like someone would unexpectedly be out there and it would send a jolt of adrenaline through me.
Yeah.
But this is like a whole other level.
They never did it in The Walking Dead, but I know I've seen it somewhere or in other horror movies where they either shove a drill through the peephole or shoot through the peephole. And I will use the peephole once in a while, but that's always in the back of my mind.
Oh, right, I know.
It's like driving the car behind a
logs.
Log. Yeah, any kind of logs. Instantly, everybody's
Final Destination.
Like, yep. Instantly.
I know, it's so funny how different movie franchises have changed the way we see things.
Yeah.
Movies or TV shows. But yeah, now we're getting a bit more backstory that Dwayne and Morgan are trying to find out if Rick is, what was it, a bank robber, or what he is exactly, or he's a cop kind of thing.
Once they found out it was a gunshot wound, like, what do you think he is, a robber?
We found out that Dwayne's mother passed away from some sort of fever.
Bite or a scratch, yeah.
Yeah, so it turned into a fever, and Morgan just said it was radiating off of her like a furnace, like basically.
That's a pretty good vision. Like, that's, I don't know, that's an intense description. That's scary.
Rick, I believe he was just speechless throughout that portion.
He didn't say a thing.
That's awful. And poor Dwayne, when Rick was at the door looking through the peephole, like I had just mentioned, poor Dwayne had seen her outside and said, "Oh, there she is," and he went running back to their bed and started screaming and crying. And it's like, you feel awful because, I mean, he's a kid. He's like, what, 10, 12 years old, something like that. But it's also like, please be quiet. You know? But it's super sad.
It's creepy watching her come up onto the porch and trying to open up the door too.
Yes.
That's like that. She still has that little bit of recognition.
Yeah.
That there's a door. Like she still knows certain things. That's creepy.
And I like the way that the actress portrayed it too, where she kind of had this weird like tilting of her head in this weird jolty way.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
A lot of the walkers had different personalities, especially in the beginning, because I think everybody, I think all the actors kind of had their own sort of idea of what a zombie should be, and you kind of see a little bit of their personality kind of coming through their performance.
Yeah,
which is kind of neat.
I don't remember the actress's name that plays Dwayne's mother and Morgan's wife, but back in 2011 or so, Jeremy and we live in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and someone had put together this almost like a Comic-Con. It was called Infect Scranton, and they had it was a cute little small, almost like a Comic-Con, where they had different zombie type of related things. They had artists that had different type of zombie artwork, which Jeremy bought me a really cool
giraffe.
Yeah, it's a giraffe. It's a giraffe that looks like a zombie. I can't remember the artist for that either, but it's really cute. I love it so much. I have it framed up on the wall, and the woman that played Dwayne's mother and Morgan's wife, she was there. She was up on the panel, and it was really cool to get to hear everything that she had to say.
Yeah. We got to see a couple of other cast members there, too, which was really cool.
Yeah, we saw T-Dog.
T-Dog.
The girl
the little girl, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the one in the first opening
was Sophia
scene.
there, too?
Sophia? I think Sophia was there, but I know the little girl.
Sophia was also
the little
there.
girl from here.
Yeah.
The first opening scene that we talked about with the little bunny rabbit.
That was pretty cool.
And then I believe there was another guy there. I didn't recognize him, so I'm sorry if you are tuning in and listening, but it was some sort of walker that was an extra somewhere on there. I don't remember. I don't know who it was, but but it was cool. It was a cool event. I think they only did it the one year, though. I don't believe they did it again.
Yeah. It was neat. They had a lot of I think they had a Q&A with the cast members. They had a lot of, like you said, artists. You could buy survival things. You could buy the paracord bracelets were a huge thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I have some. I didn't buy any from them. I definitely learned how to make them myself, but they were such a big deal back then. And then I think they were selling like machetes and stuff like that.
They might have been.
I can't remember, but they had a lot of survival stuff. It was neat.
It was really cool. I don't think like I said, I don't think they've had another one. I don't even know who put it together. So if you're listening, that was really cool of you to put that together. I'm sure it was a lot of work too, so that was really...
Bring it back if you can. Yeah, I mean, I hope it was lucrative.
And I'm going to volunteer Jeremy too, but we would get involved. We would help in ways that we could. It would be really cool to kind of get another zombie type of convention going on around the area.
There's enough fan base for it, I think.
I agree. Oh, and at that convention, speaking of Night of the Living Dead, if I remember correctly, I want to say they had a screening of that playing too. It was just however long the duration of the convention was. They just had like a small room because it was just, I think it was held at just a small local high school around our area. And so one of either the auditorium or just one of the rooms they had, I believe they had Night of the Living Dead just playing on repeat type of thing.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was neat seeing a lot of people. I think a lot of people dressed up as different characters and walkers and stuff like that. It was cool.
It was cool. And I think at the time, because like I said, it was 2011 or so it was still pretty early on in like the whole Walking Dead taking over. Now it's ginormous, and it would probably be infiltrated with people, and it would probably be people coming from outside of the area, because I don't know how far people came for this Infect Scranton. But it almost felt like now it would be almost like a New York City Comic-Con. Like I think it would be pretty big, as long as it was as long as it was advertised properly and all that stuff.
All right, so we just watched Rick wake up in the morning, and he had to double check to make sure they're really dead. He has to ask Morgan, "You sure they're dead?" Morgan reaffirms, "Yeah, they're dead." They get to kill a bum walker. The bum walker.
Yeah, he was just sitting on the side of the fence. It was kind of cool how they had him propped up just against the fence, and then he just starts slowly getting up and meandering over towards the house.
Yeah. And I wonder if the scene where Rick he finishes off that walker and he kind of sits down. And he's like, I need a moment. Is that because he's probably winded and tired?
Yeah.
Also, but I think a big part of it is like the getting past the mental part of just beating a person to death. Like, it's still there, even though he was just told that they're dead, that he knows that they're not alive anymore. But getting over that mental hurdle of hitting something that looks so alive,
yeah,
is just taking that much out of him.
And I think too, because it's only been about a month since he was shot, so I'm sure he's still internally healing, and just the action and the blunt force of like having to twist your body that way and use your muscles. But yeah, I think it's a combination of the two, the physical exertion and just the mental hurdle of that was a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the next scene they go to Rick's house, and Rick is kind of telling Morgan that he does believe that his wife and son are alive because
all the photos are gone.
Yeah. And then I think it's kind of funny that Morgan starts laughing. He's like, yep, that was pretty much my wife too. Like, I'm trying to get all the important things like the flashlights, the food and stuff, and she's grabbing the sentimental stuff. But yeah. I think that would be me too. Like, I would try to grab at least some things that you can't replace, but I also wouldn't spend too much time grabbing them because if we're needing to leave, obviously we would need the important stuff. And
again, Lenny James just having that like a little breakdown.
Yes.
I mean
he's so good.
He's really good. Love Lenny James.
And Jeremy and I were talking about it, and we're like, oh yeah, because so earlier in our podcast we had mentioned, obviously Lenny James is in The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and then Jeremy said he remembers him from the movie Snatch, and that's all we remembered him from, but then it dawned on us, oh, he was in the show Jericho.
We like Jericho a lot.
Yeah, I don't remember how large of a part he had in Jericho, but I do feel like he was in there for quite a while.
Yeah.
If any of you have watched Jericho, it was a fantastic show. It was almost another similar situation where it was just this like apocalyptic kind of show. I think they lost...
It was like a nuclear holocaust type of deal going on.
Yeah, it wasn't with zombies, but it was an apocalyptic type of thing. But then they canceled it. But the good thing with it was that they were able to somehow put it together where they could finish it off a little bit, or not a little bit, but they were able to put it together where they were able to finish the story. However, it was so rushed. It could have been another quite a few episodes from what I remember, or at the very least, like even another season.
Yeah.
But they had to jam so much stuff into it.
Yeah. It sucked, and I want to complain about the ending of that show, but I know that they got canceled, which sucks, and I appreciate that they gave us any kind of ending.
Oh God, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, as much as I didn't like the ending, like it was so rushed, I think it was understandable.
Because there's quite a few shows that we've watched that we get hooked on, and then you turn around and it's like, oh, canceled. So that's why a lot of times I honestly don't even bother trying to get into a show because they end up canceling them.
Yeah.
But back to The Walking Dead. So the next scene we go to the police station where Rick was working, because obviously he's a police officer.
Was he the sheriff's deputy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And they go there, and the three of them are able to take a nice shower, and the water's still hot. And that's when Morgan mentions that the water pretty much has been down for at least a month, or at least the temperature, like the heat for the water.
Yeah, he said the gas has been out for
a month.
Yeah, about a month.
So the water might still be running at this point, but it's just cold.
Yeah. Yeah, Rick did say that they have an independent propane tank, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mentioned too, where it's kind of in these types of situations, and I'm sure everyone would act differently than, yeah, I would do it this way, but you don't really know until you're actually in the situation. But I had mentioned, well, if they had running water here and it was still heated and whatnot, and they're familiar with the town, once he found his wife and child, don't you think they'd be like, well, let's just go back to that area?
Mm-hmm.
Because so far it's not completely decimated. Let's stay here as long as we possibly can. We know the area. We have our own house here. Like, why do you have to just flee that area?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would be a great spot to stay in, because then we're also seeing after the shower scene that they end up having all these weapons still there.
Yeah.
Which was a miracle.
I mean, we know why Rick is leaving, because he's got to find his family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting. I don't know. Well, we know why. We know why Rick leaves. He leaves to find his family.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because they heard about Atlanta, and they heard about the CDC.
Right. The camps and stuff.
Yeah, they start hearing about all that stuff. So, okay, they're going to go where the people are, where they think it's safer. But, yeah, we'll find out about that later.
Dun, dun, dun.
But, okay, so they have a shower.
Yes.
It's probably been a while since any of them had a hot shower. Has to feel amazing. I know I appreciate a hot shower.
Heck yeah.
Just after one day, I'm like, oh,
Yeah, feels so
every
good.
time. I try not to take a hot shower for granted. Yeah, so they take a hot shower, get dressed. Morgan keeps on teaching Dwayne manners, kind of throughout the show. Like he, like, what the hell came out of your mouth? What was it? Weren't no man.
Oh yeah, when they were having dinner.
What was that? Just came out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Rick gives him some clothes. Morgan kind of not corrects him, but scolds him for not saying thank you, for showing having manners. And then they get loaded up. This is when they get their guns.
Yeah. And then the one shotgun, I think it is, that they use. I'm not really well versed on
shotgun
guns and stuff. Okay, but it was the similar shotgun that Shane uses. That fits him so well.
Yeah, I think somebody did talk about how much the characters get associated with their weapons so much, like Rick and his Colt Python.
Yeah.
And then Shane and his shotgun, and then Daryl and his crossbow.
Negan
Michonne.
with Lucille.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Michonne with her katana.
And then you have like other characters way later in the series where like a slingshot.
Yes. But I mean,
they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
They're like, what other weapons can we introduce to the show? But we'll get there at some point. I mean, that's quite a few seasons away. So we'll be talking about that. But yes, so then they get the weaponry. Dwayne wants to learn how to shoot. Then they go outside and they're kind of... It seems like they are going to go their separate ways at this point, where Rick is going to just drive and try and continue finding his family, and Dwayne and Morgan are going to, I guess, stay back for a few more days. We know what he's doing, but he doesn't really tell Rick at this point. He just says he wants to brush up on his shooting, and once he's not rusty, that he'll try and find him. And of course, we all know that the walkie-talkie exchange happened.
Yeah, and that's such a key scene.
Yeah.
Too. Like, that really leads up to a lot of other things that happen
Absolutely.
further down the road.
Ties in more. Rick tells Morgan that Rick is going to turn his walkie on at dawn every day for a few minutes. So, to kind of be doing the same thing. And I mean, it is smart to kind of say that instead of just leaving your walkie on all day long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I wonder if them just mentioning Dawn, just because this is a zombie movie, or a zombie show rather, that they're referencing Dawn of the Dead.
It's possible. That's pretty clever if it is.
Just to kind of throw it in there.
Yeah.
Every day at dawn of the dead.
And this is another scene that was really beautifully shot, too, where the other police officer that he worked with comes walking up as a zombie, unfortunately. And didn't he say he didn't really think too fondly of him? But it is still a sad situation.
Called him stupid and careless, I think.
I think this is the kid that in the beginning of this episode, he had his safety on. And he was kind of like, it would be cool if we got on one of those cop shows. And then Rick was like, I think it'd be cool if you just paid attention and make sure your safety's off. And then Rick was, or I love that Shane said something like, it would be kind of cool if we got on one of those cop shows. But I am glad that he put him out of his misery with this one.
Yeah, that scene, like that slow-mo shot of, I think, what was it, Leon Bassett. The scene where he slowly falls back. He gets shot in the head and it falls back from the chain link fence.
Yeah.
Was beautiful. That was really, really cool. Super cinematic and like movie quality shot.
Definitely. I think I had mentioned this earlier though, and probably because we are already pretty well versed in this story, like this whole story as a whole and the world and everything, and they're survivors just going day by day and they don't know the severity of everything yet. But I saw this as like, well, this would have been a perfect time to mess with a knife to take the zombie out, because he's behind a chain link fence.
Or anything else.
Yeah. Because then they even said themselves, which I like that they dropped the little nuggets here, like, which was another one of they're all going to be swarming in with the sound, which I do think that Morgan mentioned that earlier in this episode when the car alarm was going off. But I kind of like that they're giving us little tidbits here and there of, oh, you got to be quiet. I always love the music that they selected for this portion, where it's the part where Rick is searching for Bicycle Girl and Morgan and Dwayne are closing up the house windows and everything, and then Morgan is going upstairs for target practice.
Yeah, it's really haunting music. Very sad, kind of somber music going on in the background. It just adds like a hollowness or an emptiness to the whole scene. Really good.
Yeah. Because everyone always says, I would love to be in a zombie apocalypse, or just some sort of apocalypse, until one happens, and then you're losing your loved ones, and then you're, like, alone, or you're...
Starving,
you're fighting for your life, you don't have the comforts of your routines and everything, and even just a hot shower or something. And then, of course, we're seeing Morgan here, where he's really struggling with, he's looking through the pictures that his wife had taken from their home when he was getting all the other supplies, and she took the pictures and everything. And he's looking through those pictures, and he's reminiscing kind of on his life with her. And then he tapes the picture of her on the windowsill, and he's looking for her.
Yeah. That was awful.
Heartbreaking.
I also kind of thought that he was putting that picture up there just to, like, kind of as a memory of her. Like, just sort of like, I'm doing this for you.
I agree. Yeah. It wasn't so much like, this is my target. Like,
it's... Yeah. I don't remember what my wife looks like. I need this reminder. What?
Yeah. It was more of a...
This is for you.
Yeah, to keep him strong and to get him to do the hard things that he's going to have to do, especially to keep his son safe. Which I told Jeremy, I said, if only he was able to take him out, because, spoiler alert, from later on in the series, we end up learning that Dwayne ended up dying because the mother came back and she bit him.
And he couldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
The boy couldn't pull the trigger. Yeah.
Oh, so sad.
Man.
So earlier in the podcast, Jeremy and I mentioned that with, like, the early episodes in the first season, they had walkers, like, turning the door handles or picking up rocks or climbing things, and totally different from how they ended up going with the storyline of the walkers, where they're just... I mean, they're very dangerous, and especially when they're in hordes like that. But I wonder if the first couple episodes, it's the variant.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if we mentioned this earlier in the podcast.
They call them the variant, but realistically, I mean, I guess they're more the original.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, a lot of them, like the little girl picking up the doll, it's odd. You know, like, it doesn't really have any kind of, you know, it's not meat, it's not food, she's not eating it.
Yeah, it's just a stuffed animal.
Just a stuffed animal. And then later on, we see walkers using bricks or rocks to try to crack the window, which is crazy.
Yeah, in the episode Guts, we'll see that.
Yeah, and then climbing over fences.
And were the variant... No, I was going to say, were the variants the ones that were also getting the experiments done to them? But no, because that was happening over in France, and some of the stuff was still happening in the U.S. Towards the later seasons.
Yeah.
So the one scene that it always kind of makes me chuckle with Morgan's scene when he's looking out the window and he's looking through the sniper rifle or the scope, and it always just looks so cheapy video game-esque to me.
Going through the scope.
Yeah, when he's like shooting that one guy walker.
And he's like, huh?
Yeah.
He looks right at the camera.
Yeah. To me, that looks so video game-esque, like the quality of it went down. Not down, but it just changed from the recording to that.
I think they were just really trying to... They might have actually been trying to recreate a scene from the comic book, honestly. Like,
maybe.
Like, panel by panel. I would have to look.
One of the things that Jeremy and I have mentioned in our podcast is that we want to read through the comic books and see how they compare and differ from the TV show. We do have all of them now. We do
have all the compendiums?
Yep, we bought, I think there's four of them. I think there's 4 of them, and we have all 4.
And we have read none.
And we have read none of them. But they're beautiful on our shelf.
Yeah. No, we do plan on reading them.
We will get to that. It's going to be a fun one. I'm looking forward to that because they've been out for forever, and we've been a huge fan of the Walking Dead TV show since it first aired. So I think that's going to be another little add-on for us because it's going to be some differences we know for sure. Because some things we've seen throughout the time of the airing of The Walking Dead, where other people would say, oh, well, Andrea, this happened with Andrea, or this happened with Carl, or this happened with Rick, and oh, that's not how it happened in the book versus the TV show. So we'll see how they are, and then we'll do some sort of discussion about it, which I'm excited about.
Yeah. I think we'll just talk about, specifically just the comic book, and then kind of like we'll go through the books and kind of give our judgment on the comic books, and then be like, wow, I can't believe they went that way in the comic book, but they went a completely different way from the show.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting.
I'm not sure how we're gonna do it yet because we haven't been there just yet. So
yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, and if you feel like dropping us a suggestion on how you think we should handle the comic books and how we should discuss it, then feel free to leave us a comment or something, and we'll take that in consideration when we get to that point.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be pretty cool to be an extra or a zombie in this show, just in the entire run of the show. But in the first season especially, because it was such like a...
landmark?
Landmark, but just, hey, we're shooting this new zombie movie or this new zombie show. You want to come out? It's like, yeah, F it, I'll come out and I'll take care. I'll see what I can get done or whatever. I'll see where I can be put into the show. And then it's such a huge phenomenon, like a huge cult following now, to be part of that is outrageous.
Yeah. Even if I were one of the extras and I'm like, that was my shoe. That was my shoe girl right there. Look at that. That was me. I was there. I did that.
Put that on your IMDb or whatever it's called. IMDb, I think it is. DB for database or something. Either way, put that on there. That was my shoe.
Internet movie database.
So now we have Rick wandering through the field looking for Bicycle Girl, which I thought was really sweet that he went back to put her out of her misery. And
yeah, that one must have really pulled at his heartstrings because I don't know, just like for him to think to go back and find that one.
Yeah,
maybe because she was so
bad,
pathetic. Like in like it was, she was sad to look at.
Well, as Jeremy and I were rewatching it when it was on the screen, Jeremy was like, I wonder how that even happened to her, because
yeah, the best I can think of is maybe she was already turned and somebody was freaking out trying to get out of town and hit her with a car.
Maybe.
And she got broken in half.
Whew. So crazy.
Mm-hmm.
She's such a classic one, too.
Oh, yeah.
So classic. And I do love it. It does show the type of man that Rick is, which is a great man, in my opinion. I love Rick Grimes. He's one of my absolute favorite movie characters ever. But I love that he said, I'm sorry this happened to you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Because he still sees the human in them, or realizes there's still a human there, or it was once a human, and now it's just this unfortunate thing happened to them.
Just what's the word I'm looking for? Compassion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's a compassionate man.
Ho, ho, ho.
Love that scene. That was a lot going on there. There's like so many plot lines kind of coming together right there. We just watched Rick driving in his cop car, talking on the radio, trying to reach out, trying to find anybody, and gets a hold of Amy, getting hold of the new group that we're going to be getting acquainted to pretty soon. And in comes the axe.
Woohoo!
And we see Shane. Shane's still alive, and he tries to get a hold of Rick. Trying to get a hold of Rick on the radio.
Because Dale was mentioning, like, there was an issue with the CB radio, and that's when Dale says, hey, you know how to use this, why don't you come and tinker with it, basically, and that's when Shane gets introduced. Woo!
And, Shane has a girlfriend who happens to have a son, and at this point, I mean, everybody pretty much knows who they are.
Yeah.
But the first time watching this, we had no idea. Like, okay, who's this with Shane? And turns out to be... am I jumping the gun?
No,
Am I going too fast?
No, I don't think so. Well, one of the things I mentioned to Jeremy was I liked the little, I don't know if Easter egg is the right word to use, but just the little subtle thrown in there part, because we know from the beginning of the first episode, Shane and Rick were having a chat in the vehicle, and then the shootout, and so like at this point you recognize who Shane is.
Right.
But when he was kissing this woman that he's with, when his hand was on like the backside of her head, he was still holding his hat, his baseball hat, and you could see the logo for Sheriff's Department. So to me, that's kind of, I like that little nod for that too. And then they leave the tent, and the next scene is Rick pulling down the visor, and the picture,
the family photo.
Yep.
Him and that woman.
And the baby. Well, not the baby,
Lori,
but the son.
And Carl.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we watched another YouTuber at one point mentioning how once that scene happens, now it's not just a survival horror show, it's a drama.
Yeah.
And it just adds a whole other layer to everything.
Definitely. Because automatically you're going to know, oh, that's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Because you kind of gauge that Shane and Rick are best friends or very, very good friends.
They did a really good job. Like, we didn't have a lot of screen time necessarily with Shane and Rick together, but we already loved them as friends. Like, we loved them as a buddy system there. I don't know, they had a really good chemistry. They worked well together, and we liked both of them. And now, drama.
Yes, and oh boy, does it get hairy as the episodes continue. This is also one of my favorite scenes, where Rick is driving, and then he obviously runs out of gas, and he's walking from his police cruiser with the gas can, and he's starting to walk down the street. And so this is where it correlates with the opening scene, because he's looking for gas then and everything. But going back to the current scene, he goes to that farmhouse that's there. And one of my favorite scenes, I don't know why it's so haunting and beautiful and sad and just a lot of emotions all at one time, where they wrote in blood, "God forgive us,"
Mm-hmm.
because it looked like an older couple that lived on the farm, and I would assume the husband probably killed the wife, like a mercy killing kind of thing, and then took his own life.
Yeah. The messed up part is, too, like, he probably wrote "God forgive us" in her blood.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because, I don't know, he couldn't do it afterwards.
No!
It was another really graphic scene, and probably very realistic. I'm sure if something like this were to really happen in real life, a lot of this would happen. This would be a pretty common scene.
Oh, for sure. I like this scene because it's still very early in Rick's experience with this world, but his reaction to that, you could tell he got a little, like, almost sick from that, and he had to go sit down and, like, calm himself down for a second, and he even kind of spit a little bit. To me, that I took that as, ooh, he was almost going to be sick.
Yeah, for sure. He was probably watering at the mouth. Like, oh, I'm gonna be sick.
Yeah, because there were flies in there too, so I'm sure they had to be there for a bit. And what I love too about, I think, just The Walking Dead in general, I get this nostalgic feeling when I hear just the sounds of summer. Like, you could just hear the heat, and you can hear the bugs and stuff, and that's what you can hear in the background here. So you know it's dead of summer, and it's freaking hot as all heck. And they're in Georgia, so
it's gotta be hot.
Super hot. I know that's what the cast always complained about, was just how freaking hot it was there.
No, but going back to the sounds and everything like that, when he's investigating the house, and you're like, okay, well, maybe it's just an abandoned building, but then you see the flies in the house, and even before we saw the bodies, as soon as you see the flies, you know what's coming.
Oh,
you know there's going to be a body, and that was a sad scene.
It was. Definitely another classic scene from the show, in my opinion. I'm kind of surprised, to what I remember, they don't have that "God Forgive Us" in the intro. That would have been a good one to add in there, too.
That definitely would have been.
So he found a truck on the property, and he was hoping that he would be able to find the keys in there, and at least...
At first he didn't try to siphon the gas, by the way.
I was, too. But then he heard the horse, and he's probably thinking, well, I won't have to fill that up with gas, just has to eat every once in a while and whatnot. And then, he gets on the horse. Well, he gets in the pen with the horse.
Yeah.
So I wonder how long it's been since that horse was able to eat or drink anything, because if the caretakers just died...
Yeah.
Well, not just, but...
Yeah, who knows? They might have been taking care of him for a while after the whole pandemic hit. Yeah, but who knows? They might have just killed themselves like a day or two ago.
Maybe
a little bit longer. They didn't look horribly rotten.
Decomposed, yeah. But the flies being there and in the heat... I like this scene, and Jeremy and I watched a YouTuber the other day about the first season, or maybe just the first episode. I think it was just how amazing the first episode was. And he mentioned, which Jeremy and I never noticed this before, and even rewatching it now, when Rick gets on the horse and tells the horse, take it easy, it's been a couple years since I've done this, and then the horse just takes off and he starts running. Apparently, filming this portion, Rick's hat flew off. Yeah. And in editing, they erased it. Yeah, they erased it from falling, and then they just kept it on his head. And at one point, it did turn into like a CG hat that they tried to do. And we saw it more in the YouTube video, but here I couldn't really tell that much.
It's hard to tell. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
It is.
But if you like watch the hat as he's running away, as he's going away from the camera, it does look a little like a sticker.
Yeah, it does.
They kind of put a sticker on there.
Yeah.
But good. I don't know. Not bad at all. I think maybe because the hat doesn't tilt at all. Like there's no kind of
maybe like a third dimension to it.
There's no pitch and yaw to it, as it were.
A yeehaw?
Yeehaw. There's no pitch and yeehaw to it.
Sorry, guys.
So it just looks like it's kind of just moving up and down and getting smaller. Mm-hmm. It does get smaller. It'd be funny if it stayed the same size. It would have been funny. It would have been funny too. I think it would have been a cool scene to keep it blowing off his head, but then he would have had to go back and get it anyway. So I know there would have been that continuity. People would have been like, but his hat blew off in the last scene. Well, he obviously went back and got it. I think that would have been. I think it would have been funnier if his hat did blow off.
Yeah. It's kind of like solo YouTubers and whatnot, that they have to set up the tripod and press record, and then they have to walk away from the camera and walk towards it, and they act like they're just on this hike, but it's you know that after they record that they're like, I gotta go get my camera.
And sometimes they put it in like some precarious places
they do. It's amazing how much time people put into those shots.
That's funny.
And now the next scene, which is the classic, it ends up being the cover for like the DVD, and I think the cover for their advertising.
You could flash this scene for a fraction of a second, and people would know what it was.
This is one of my top favorite images from The Walking Dead. It is my wristwatch wallpaper. I've had it there since I got my wristwatch about 2 years ago. It is the scene where Rick is on the horse going into Atlanta.
Yep.
And the part of the highway that Rick is walking in on, completely empty. But the other side, it's all the cars leaving the city.
Yep.
Oh, God.
He's the only one entering.
I'm getting the chills just thinking about this
So
scene.
good.
Earlier in this podcast, I had mentioned one of my absolute favorite walkers from this entire series being in this episode. And Jeremy and I started questioning. I was like, wait, was it this episode? And I was like, no, it's definitely this episode. And I know you were kind of like, I don't think it is.
I don't know why I thought it was Guts. I thought it was an episode with Guts.
No, it was definitely this one. It is the walker that was sitting in the bus. And he has kind of like, he has suit and tie on. He kind of has a little bit of longer hair, like down to his chin area. And he just looks so creepy. And there's something about him that I love.
He looks like he's thinking.
Yes.
He looks like a villain.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like a villain.
He is one of my absolute favorite walkers ever.
He looks like a smart walker.
Yeah. And then he even, in the beginning scene when like we first walk by him and Rick is on the horse and the horse gets spooked because there's walkers in the bus, and then my favorite guy comes out of there, and it reminds me of this meme that's going around with the Grinch right now. What is up, my guy? I don't know what it is besides, I guess it would just be he's this huge personality, and like you said, a freaking villain.
He doesn't say anything, obviously, but the way he carries himself, the way he looks at Rick, it's nothing over the top, but there's like an intensity to the way he looks at Rick, and it just makes him look like he is fixated on Rick. He has like...
He's like honed in.
He feels like a villain.
Yeah, and even the last couple seconds of the episode when Rick is in the tank, they pan over to him in the midst of all the other like dozens of walkers. They pan to him and he's just like standing there, kind of like tilting his head in such a way. Yep. Something about it, man, I just love.
Yeah, I do kind of wish they had him a little bit more.
Me too.
Even if like, I wish they had him a little bit more.
So whoever that actor was, good freaking job, because you are my favorite walker ever. Man. But this ending is crazy because Rick is walking and then we see him meet my favorite walker and it's still not much is going on, and then he gets to the end of this one skyscraper and it is inundated with walkers.
Well, he sees the helicopter.
Oh, that's right. He sees the helicopter
which
first.
Which is another huge plot point.
Yep.
Which, we didn't think anything, we didn't think much of it when we first saw it, but we're like, oh, okay, there are still people, maybe military still checking Atlanta, who knows. I thought maybe they were going to like try to bomb the city or something like that.
Which we find throughout other portions of the series that has happened.
Yeah. But, no, so, Rick starts chasing the
helicopter,
probably looking for, somebody to save him. And like you said, inundated. Just an entire street, shoulder to shoulder, walkers. And we already heard they're all right one at a time or a few, but when there's a bunch of them, run.
Yeah, so many. And so Rick, I believe he tried to turn around, but then it was kind of too late at that point. They grabbed they grabbed the horse. I'm glad he didn't get scratched or anything.
Got lucky.
Yeah, because we know that even scratches could turn you too. But that poor horse.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
But then Rick ends up climbing underneath that tank that was there, and I always thought that it was weird that I'm sorry, Carl, I'm sorry, Lori, I'm whatever he ends up saying there. I always was like, that just sounds odd, the way they had it. And then it wasn't until we watched that YouTuber a couple weeks ago or the other day that he mentioned that it's supposed to be an inner dialogue.
Yeah, we thought it was just like a weird dub. He said that out loud, but they dubbed it over afterwards. But I think it was like his internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm. And then he found the open door at the bottom of the tank, thankfully, and got in there. And when he gets inside, he's like, "Oh, thank God!" And then,
oh man, the military, the
military
soldier,
walker,
the soldier.
Yeah, the soldier is in there.
That's the word I was looking for. But the soldier, he's still a walker inside the tank. Starts turning on Rick. Rick shoots him in the head with the Colt Python right next to him. Which they did a really good job at the continuity, because when he gets under the tank, that's when he starts shooting walkers. You count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually revolvers are only 6 shots, depending on make and model, etc. but he was just about to use that last one before he goes into the tank.
Oh, that's right.
So he only had that one shot to shoot that soldier.
Wow.
So that was cool.
And I believe he did just grab a gun off the soldier's waist, too. Oh, yeah. Like his waistband.
It was a Beretta.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did.
Love that gun.
Then in the shock, and Rick is dealing with the ringing in his ears and all that, and then the way that they filmed it, it's like all squiggly and stuff, so you can tell he's like really
dazed.
Yeah, dazed is the word I was looking for. But thankfully, within his dazed state, he looked up and saw that the upper door was still open. So he had to quick get himself together and get up there and close it. Whew. But then that's when they see my guy again.
My guy.
What is up, my guy?
Hey, what is up, my guy? But, yeah. And the crazy thing is, too, again, this is why he looks like a villain, and he looks smarter than the rest of the walkers, is because all the other walkers are pretty much, like, focused on the horse, or they're trying to get into the tank, but that walker is just watching. He's watching Rick.
Yeah, he's, like, calculating
it
stuff
felt
or
weird.
Yeah.
Almost like a whisperer.
Yeah, that's true.
But
not.
He's not. But he has that like intensity, that sort of it was cool. He was a good character.
And then this is when we get introduced at least to the voice of one of my top favorite actors, actors, yes, but one of my top favorite characters in the entire series too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Here.
Glenn.
Yeah, I wanted you to say it because I know you just went on.
Yeah, I love Glenn. He's so sweet. Oh.
He was absolutely one of the best actors and characters on the show.
Yes.
And Stephen Yeun.
Love him.
We've watched a couple of his other projects since. We're looking forward to Mickey 17.
Yeah, he's going to be in that one.
I'm looking forward to that.
I hope he's going to be in there for a long portion of the movie because sometimes in the trailer, for example, in the trailer, they showed Stephen Yeun, but I hope it's not going to be like 2 seconds that he's in there and then he's done.
Yeah.
Like, I hope he's going to be in there for a good chunk of the movie.
But Glenn was a great character.
Top-notch guy.
This is our first time hearing of him or just hearing his voice in the show as a great character. Like, you think Rick is alone in Atlanta, and that's what Rick thinks. He's stuck in
he's
this
like,
tank
oh, I am screwed.
in a sea of walkers, and he hears his voice.
And he dropped all the weapons out where all the walkers are. So he's probably like, oh my god, how do I even get to that?
Yep.
And then we hear Glenn say... Well, he said a couple of things, but
Hey, dumbass.
Yeah, hey, dumbass. Cozy in there? God, I love that. That's such a classic line. Classic Glenn.
No, this first episode is absolutely the best. Like, they structured it so well to get you connected to the characters real quick. Like, we love Rick, we love Shane. So quick. Like, I don't know. They really built up that character affection. I don't know. We really love those characters.
And just the dark humor of the, hey, dumbass, Cozy in there.
Yeah. From leading to that to the apocalypse and thrown into this world where Rick knows nothing about what's going on, and meeting Morgan, another one of our favorite characters, and learning about his backstory gets Rick up to speed. So now Rick knows what's going on. Now he has a mission to find his family, who we haven't seen until he's calling on the radio.
Yeah.
Then we see Shane again.
And that reveal is amazing.
Oh, man.
That reveal.
Everything, played out really well. And then the ending of this episode, hearing Glenn over the radio and just thinking, whoa, who's this? How is this going to play out now? It was really good.
So good. And I'm trying to remember how it was for us when we first watched this, like when it originally aired, because I know we didn't watch it live. I remember DVRing it and forcing Jeremy to watch it with me, and I don't remember how many episodes we had aired, that had already aired. Definitely this one, maybe the second one, but it's amazing. It is my comfort season. It's my comfort show. And it's so weird to say that because it's such a crazy show that it's my comfort show, but it's so calming to me. I mean, there's definitely quite a few episodes, especially as we get further into the series, that make me so anxious, and we'll get into those, but there's ones where, like the Pike episode, where some of our loved ones their freaking heads are just up on that hill. Like, there's such a hollow, depressing feeling.
Yeah, I felt bad. I felt like empty inside after watching that episode.
I remember going to work the next day, and I had some coworkers that also watched The Walking Dead, and I just remember being so sad and so upset, and just that was not a comfort episode for me by any means.
But we're gonna watch it again.
Heck yeah. There are going to be some scenes I'm going to have difficulty watching, like one of my favorite characters, Glenn. When Negan gets introduced, that's a very hard episode for me to watch. Like, even thinking of it, I feel like I'm going to cry. It's a very hard episode for me to watch. I am very passionate.
Was that Here's Negan? Was that the name of the episode?
It might be. I don't remember. It very well could be. But you know what I always hate, too? I feel bad, as much as I love Glenn, I always feel bad that Abraham's death gets overshadowed by Glenn dying, too. Because Abraham
was a great character.
He sacrificed himself for that one. He's like, I'll do it, kind of thing. Freaking epic guy. But we'll get into those. Mm-hmm. They wrapped up this episode, and we're going to be watching the next one pretty soon. Gosh. So good.
Yeah, can't say enough about the first episode.
Yep.
And the first season, or the first whole season, which was too short.
Yes.
I know this podcast is probably going to be pretty long.
Yeah.
But because we're so passionate about the very first episode and the first season, we had a lot to say.
And just in general, we just really enjoy The Walking Dead, and Jeremy and I love to talk to each other, obviously. We're married. And then we really enjoyed talking about The Walking Dead. And so hopefully you guys will tune in and listen to us and join in on the conversations with us, so it's not just we're talking to the void. We have fun doing it. We're going to continue to do it as long as we possibly can. We're going to get better with posting our content.
Mm-hmm. I think we're getting more comfortable hearing our own voices, which is always a weird thing. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to have fun with this.
Me too. And let us know if you think of anything that we should do or we shouldn't do, or we try not to ramble as best as we can, and we try to stay on course, but sometimes we don't. And we also want to make this fun for us, and we want to make sure that we're doing what we want to do too, within reason, of course. Like, we want to make sure you guys are entertained too, and we're not just going to go off on a tangent of certain things. But
thank you, everybody, for listening to us ramble on about our favorite season, first episode. Well, yeah, our favorite episode of The Walking Dead.
Yes. I can't wait for the second season. We'll discuss that one. It'll be another fun time.
Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to get ready to start watching episode 2.
Yes.
We'll start talking about that.
I'm excited to get out there more with all of this. And please join in on the conversations. I will have more of our contact information available for you in the next episode, that you can find us on Instagram and our email. Although, is that kind of archaic to just do email? So maybe just do Instagram. And then we have a YouTube channel for this also, so you can comment on there. We post on Spotify, and then it gets dispersed to other podcast streaming platforms.
Thanks for tuning in to our Dead Talk podcast as we discuss The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1, titled Days Gone By.
Tune in to our next podcast, where we'll discuss The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 2, titled Guts.
Ooh.
Bye.
Bye.